Yeah, I was just getting a nice little thumbnail.
Oh, is that your thumbnail? Hold on. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new series of videos we're doing, actually. We're a little late to the party, but, we decided as the summer transfer window heats up, we're going to do a weekly transfer vid series. How are we, Matt?
Yeah, look, better late than never. And look, the transfer window might be coming close to the start of the season, but I'll tell you, there's some big transfers that are still looming, I reckon, that still haven't happened.
What are you talking about? Manchester United have only just done their first signing. This is like early window. Of course, they wouldn't have taken a month to get the first signing across the line.
And who was their first signing, Jackson, was it?
Malakia? He's I'm pronunciation, the Dutch. I have no idea how the Dutch pronounce that one. But yeah, he's a left back. Replacement, my guess, for Telles, who got no. Luke Shaw will stay. Telles got in a bust up with Hannibal at Carrington, so he's gone. So they're bringing him in to replace him.
Yeah, no, I didn't know if he gets the starting lineup or if Luke Shaw does.
I don't know, honestly. He's only young. I think he's 22 years old. I don't really, but they paid a lot of money for him not to go and be contesting the starting lineup. It was it was like 20 million or something. Yeah, that's how much they paid for Telles.
It was a decent shout for him. So
yeah. Well, we'll see. If Luke Shaw gets injured or out of form, he'll be straight into the starting lineup ahead of Brandon Williams.
Oh, for sure.
I don't know if he has a future there. But let's get into our stories from today. So the idea for this series is that we'd find some ridiculous headlines about transfers about some pretty big transfers and give our thoughts on whether they're complete rubbish or, whether we think these would make for good transfers.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one we're going to talk about is a Daily Mail article seen here. Tottenham seeking Memphis Depay. So we know that Tottenham already got in January Kulusevski.
Yep.
Who was fantastic for them in the winger position.
They got Perisic as well.
Perisic they have, who could play that position, but I think they're going to play him more as wingback. And they've also they're getting Richarlison.
That's correct.
So it makes sense that the only position they haven't signed this year, calendar year, is striker. Now, Matt, does Tottenham need Memphis Depay?
See, I knew you were going to ask me this type of question. We hadn't discussed the questions before, but I knew you were going to ask me some type of question like this. And look, it's a hard choice to make. I think they're sort of banking on the factors if they get Depay and say Harry Kane gets a better offer, Harry Kane leaves, at least they've got Depay as a backup. But you look at they've got Kane, who normally plays in the middle. They play Son, they play either Lucas Moura or Kulusevski on the other side. So they've got attacking prowess, and we've seen it throughout the latter ends of the previous season. They those guys, when they combine together, especially Kane and Son, they can bang some goals in. So I don't really think they needed a striker per se, like Depay, but I reckon it's sort of like a little bit of a consolation as well. Like they're trying to stack their attacking lineup in case Harry Kane eventually leaves. That's what the same thing they did with Charleston as well. They bring Richarlison in. He's sort of like a backup, a secondary option or something, or like a foul safe plan.
I'm not sure if I think if you're spending 60 million on a player, he's starting. Unless you're Man City, he has to start on the left wing. So
what happens? Son gets pushed out of the left wing then.
Yeah, well, I have to assume that you don't spend 60 million on a player like Richarlison, and he does and put him on the bench. And Richarlison wouldn't accept the move unless he was told, here's where you're going to fit in the lineup. Yeah, he would have sat down with representatives from Tottenham and they would have said, here's where you'll play.
So here's where I don't see how a signing for a striker like Depay makes sense, because then they've already got, they've got the Kane, you've got your Kulusevski, you've got your Son, you've got your Raphinha. They're all pretty decent quality players. Some top league players. where you're going to play all of them. You can't play all of them. Like, you can't start all of them. You can't put all of them into a starting 11 for 90 minutes or so. So how are they going to manage playing those 4 guys? Because, like, yeah, Son's definitely got to play. There's no doubt about that. Tied Golden Boot winner last season, but I will add that he didn't score any penalties in his Golden Boot race, whereas Salah did. So theoretically, in my mind, he's the sole Golden Boot winner. Harry Kane, he's Harry Kane. There's no explanation for him. And then obviously you've got Kukushevsky, you got Lucas Moura, you got a couple other guys that can play there. So like it's hard to see how they're going to fit all of them together.
But yeah, we'll see how. But I definitely think there'll be something to fit him in. But it also comes down. I mean, we're talking about the Tottenham side of this, in which I agree with most of what you said on Depay, at least in that.
Yeah,
it's a backup, right? You're backing up positions that you already have a ton of, and having Depay as a backup is really good, especially for what's been quite like Barcelona. In previous reports I saw are willing to let him go for 25-30 million.
Well, that also helps Barcelona out in their financial situations as well.
Yes, but here's the difference, right? And this is where this transfer seems to unravel for me. They signed Depay on a free, right? So they signed him for a free from Lyon. But he last season, he was their joint top goal scorer.
Yep.
They have no one else. They have an old Aubameyang. They released Aguero. They have this talented Depay. They got him on a free. And if you're in that sort of financial stress, there are better transfers to make. Like De Jong, in contrast, you're talking 80 million.
Yep.
Why would you sell your joint leading goal scorer for 25 million? Why is he the choice when you can get other players off the books? Exactly. For me, this makes no sense from a Barcelona perspective.
I mean, Chelsea was going to take Ousmane Dembele off their books, but Xavi wanted to negotiate a fresh contract with him.
But that his form did pick up towards the end of last season.
That's partly why Chelsea wanted him, other than the fact that Tuchel was his coach at Dortmund.
I just can't believe that Depay is the key to Barcelona's financial difficulties. Like,
well, he's not.
Yeah, he's
not.
Selling him won't actually, like, there's better. I mean, they just sold like broadcasting rights worth 200 million.
They've done something towards the start of June where people can have their weddings at Camp Nou. Like, they're trying to rake as much money as they can to get this financial debt down.
And in all of that, Depay seems like
it's just
a very minute addition for the goals he proceeds on the pitch. It just doesn't seem right to me. I mean, I'll ask you this so we can move on. So do you think this transfer is viable for both clubs, or is this complete rubbish? Daily Mail, complete rubbish.
I mean, Daily Mail's not the most reliable source, but it does appear a couple of times in this video, so I can't really knock it. But I will say it'll be a win for Tottenham. It'll be a loss for Barcelona. Even though Barcelona gets money off their books, like, it's still going to be a loss for them. And Tottenham, it'll be sort of a win but a loss as well. Like, you're winning getting a class player in Depay, but you're also going to lose in the fact that you're going to have to fit him into the rotation. If he doesn't fit in the rotation, he's just going to sit on the bench, and what's going to happen to his career after that?
Yeah. All right, we'll move on then to the second transfer of the day. This is a little bit more of a complicated one. You know, the Depay one, we only know of Tottenham looking into that. However, Raphinha, he's been a big name this transfer window. Matt, tell us a bit about the Raphinha saga we've seen so far and the latest updates this week. Yeah,
so we've seen Raphinha be linked to quite a few teams in this transfer window. The first one, I believe, that come out, I don't think this is chronologically correct, but the first team that showed interest, I believe, was Arsenal. And Raphinha was just like, no way. Like, I'm not going to Arsenal. And fair play to him. Like, I wouldn't want to be going to Arsenal. Like, considering the fact that he also had two other teams, being Chelsea and Barcelona, looking at him, specifically Chelsea was more keen than Barcelona at one specific point. That was I think, more appealing to him. And I know Raphinha wants to play in Barcelona. He wants to play there, play in the Spanish league, be in that Barcelona team. So Chelsea have had a hard time with Raphinha. We thought we'd sign him. There was a couple advancements in getting the transfer to occur, and then earlier this week, a article had come out, which you can see up here, and this article details that Barcelona and Xavi are trying to elongate the transfer negotiations until they have enough money in their budget or enough wiggle room to sign Raphinha. And that's what's been putting Raphinha off signing for Chelsea.
Let me jump right in here, because this sounds, oh my God, this sounds eerily familiar. It's almost like that's exactly what they said Barcelona were trying to do with Haaland before he joined City. This media obsession with Barcelona suddenly having no financial difficulties and signing all the best players is the biggest load of rubbish I've ever seen in my life. Every big player that comes along, it's like, oh, Barcelona are terrible. They have no money, but they're probably going to sign this player. Thus, I'm going to write an article about it and justify myself to my wife and my children that I'm still a sports journalist. It's rubbish, because, I mean, the Fabrizio Romano, if I want, is more about Raphinha wants to go to Barcelona. If Barcelona could make a deal, it would have been done already. They cannot. Exactly.
That's why they're elongating their transfer talks and discussions, because they don't have enough room to get him on the books.
But they won't, though. They won't this summer. Nothing's going to change this summer to let them do an £80 million signing for a player like Raphinha, who's going to demand big wages as well. Yeah, Raphinha doesn't strike me as the kind to go, yeah, I'll take a pay cut.
No, because I think Chelsea offered him 65, if I'm correct, 65 mil. No. And yeah, I don't know if he wasn't too keen on that, but yeah, he was trying to hold out for Barcelona.
But I actually think I've been criticizing Chelsea's sort of front lineup for a while. I, as a neutral, I've never been impressed by Havertz, Ziyech. Mount's good, but not on his own. He can only do so much on his own. Lukaku's Lukaku. That story has been told many times.
He's not in our team anymore. What are you talking about?
That's well. Chelsea just don't actually have great attacking players, and I thought Tuchel never really organised them in a good way. But Raphinha doesn't feel like Tuchel. If Tuchel signed Raphinha, it's almost like he's not trying to create a flowing attack. Raphinha would become like Mount. He would simply be trying to do his own thing, score a nice half volley goal when needed, basically, like a moment of brilliance on his own. That's the player Raphinha is.
What he was doing at Leeds, because he was one of the standout players at Leeds. So he'll have the same mindset coming in. That's going to ruin the team dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, I barely think there's an attacking dynamic as is. When you take out players like Rudiger and their contribution amongst the attacking trio, I'm questionable. But so that being said, talked a bit about, I mean, Arsenal, I think, are a non-entity in this. I just don't really see anything exciting about Arsenal, and I think there will be 4 teams that are better than Arsenal this season to come. So I think Raphinha will be thinking about that. Also, the fact they don't have Champions League football now. But Matt, as a Chelsea fan, if we're saying that Raphinha's given Arsenal the middle finger, it's more of a Chelsea-Barcelona situation. Yeah. Where would he go? Predict now. If he leaves Leeds, is he going to Chelsea or Barcelona?
I'm going to say, and this is not my particular preference, this is just where I think he'll go. I think he's going to come to Chelsea, purely based off the fact that Barcelona aren't going to have the room to sign him. Purely based off that. I don't think he's going to. If he goes somewhere else in the Premier League, let's look at the top 4. Top 4's Tottenham, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City. Man City's already full. Liverpool's got a formidable lineup already. Tottenham, they're making big plays this transfer window. They're probably not going to go for Raphinha. So there's only really one top 4 team left that he could potentially sign to if Barcelona can't get that money or that space to sign.
And I'm going to say he doesn't leave Leeds. So how about that?
That's also a big possibility. Yeah.
But yeah, so that being said, we will move on to our third transfer. And having just come off the back of saying that Arsenal is a hellscape that should not attract any form of player, this next Daily Mail, a Daily Express article says differently. It says that Tielemans is sold on Arsenal despite Manchester United interest. I also know West Ham were looking into him, and I know a couple other teams were into him. So he's in the final year of his contract. And Matt, I'm just going to come out of this gate and say this article stinks of complete rubbish to me.
This is the biggest load of, and you can censor this, like BS I've heard in my life. Like Tielemans, yeah, he was at Leicester. Leicester wasn't great this year, but there are so many other clubs that would benefit from having a Tielemans like player in their roster over Arsenal that are even better than Arsenal. Not even just in like the Premier League, but in other leagues around the world as well. Mm-hmm. Other leagues would benefit from having a Tielemans like player, and they perform better than Arsenal. Mm-hmm. So I just think the article is.
I mean, we can talk about a bunch. We'll focus on Manchester United because of time. I mean, you can say what you want, but Manchester United, with Ten Hag coming in, you'd prefer Manchester United to Arsenal right now. I truly believe that. I actually think that in Tielemans' position, he should go to Manchester United, not Arsenal.
Oh, for sure. I 100% agree.
But or crazy idea, he runs out his final year on his contract, plays at Leeds and see if things reverse and Leeds get back on track, and then join whatever clubs he wants when his contract is done.
That's also another option as well.
This idea that he's sold on Arsenal just doesn't row my boat. I mean, I admit I don't think he's coming to West Ham, because I think West Ham right now are on sort of the same level Leicester were when he joined them. When he joined them, it was the same level. So he wants to make a step up in his career, not sort of stagnate.
Yeah, right.
So West Ham are only about the point that Leicester were when he joined, hovering around just outside the top six.
Yeah.
But he got to experience something much better with Leicester, even like really having a crack at those Champions League spots. So I really think that like his ambitions, I feel like going to Arsenal, it'd stagnate his career, because I don't see Arsenal getting Champions League football next season. But Manchester United, I do see Manchester United getting Champions League football. So, I mean, I've seen these. I mean, maybe you haven't been looking in, but I have seen these headlines come up, and it's been weeks of Tielemans back and forth between these clubs.
I've seen it. I honestly do think I'm going down the same path, agreeing with you. Manchester United's the place to go for him. I mean, I know Anthony might not be watching this, but if you are Anthony, Tielemans has scored worldies at Old Trafford, especially last year when was it the Leicester beat them? Jackson, do you remember that live stream we were doing?
Yeah. I mean, Tielemans. I mean, it's hard to see. I think he's got to juggle his options based on how well Leicester are going to do next season, and he's got to look at. I mean, obviously he's had a meeting with Arsenal representatives, I assume, who've said, "This is our aim. We want you to lead our midfield with a potential player being in jail." I have no confirmation that this is true, because that redacted player that I thought it is in their pre-season squad, so the situation is uncertain. But obviously, they've told him he's going to lead in the midfield at Arsenal, and I assume he would at Manchester United as well. He'd fill that Pogba place. But at Arsenal, it's just, we'll see. I mean, personally, I think this article is rubbish. I think this is a rubbish article. I don't think Tielemans is sold on Arsenal. I think this saga is going to drag on for a while. He might go there. I do not think he's sold on it. I think this is an over-exaggeration. Agree?
Look, I agree. I just want to say something. Like, if you're not a diehard Arsenal fan when you're a kid, how many players get sold on transferring to Arsenal? I just want to say that, because most players, they get sold for the big clubs in the Premier League. If you're making that step up to that level, you want to get to the top level. So you want to get to your Man United, your Man Cities, your Liverpools, your Chelseas. You're not sold on, North London, Arsenal. Yeah, like great.
Yeah, it's not quite it, is it?
No.
And that's our three main transfers today. But to wrap us up, we've got one ridiculous piece of news. It's not a transfer per se, but it's just something we picked up from an article. This article here, Matt, explain to us what this is about.
So Chelsea lost a dear old friend of mine, one Andreas Christensen, to Barcelona. And when they signed Andreas Christensen, this is Barcelona I'm talking about, they built a release clause into his contract. And this was a ridiculously high release clause. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jackson, 430 million, wasn't it?
That would be about right.
Yeah. $430 million release clause for Andreas Christensen at a struggling financial Barcelona.
Yeah. I think this is rubbish. I have heard some other ridiculous release clauses at Barcelona, though I know Pedri has a ridiculous release clause. But I know Christensen is on the younger side, to be fair. He's 26.
He is on the younger side, but Pedri, I wholeheartedly agree with that release clause for Pedri. Yeah, just 18-year-old wonder class, but yeah.
You know what's ironic about this release clause though? Next season they're probably going to let him go for 5 million because they got to offload wages.
Yeah,
that's probably how that's going to go down.
Yeah.
God damn it. And that's a wrap on our first transfer video. Let us know if you liked it. We've given you 3 pretty dismal transfers here, but we've given our thoughts and let us know how you feel about them. And we'll be back next week with a similar video. Cheers.
Yeah, we'll try and spice up the transfers next week. We'll see what happens in the world of the Premier League. All right. Thanks, everyone.